So now I wanted to speak about the case of Bishop Strickland, which some people know about, some don't. But Bishop Strickland was the bishop of the Diocese of Tyler, Texas, and then somewhere around 2019, somewhere a few years back, when Pope Francis was still Pope, he was removed from being bishop. Okay, so no official reasons were ever given for this, but it was pretty well known that Bishop Strickland had done what? Criticized Pope Francis. And for anybody who follows the public statements of Pope Francis wouldn't be confused to know that oftentimes Pope Francis would say things that would be very easily or could be very easily misinterpreted as going against the teachings of the church. And people don't understand papal infallibility. It doesn't apply to whatever comments that a pope makes to a news reporter or even in a public speech. It's only what he declares ex cathedra as being infallible, which Pope Francis never proclaimed anything that way. But he said a lot of things in public and issued statements. So the idea that no one could criticize what he said, that's ridiculous. If you go back to the very first Pope, St. Peter, St. Paul criticized him publicly when St. Peter was, I don't remember exactly where he was, but he was dissembling. He had been eating and hanging out with the Gentiles until some Jews showed up, and then he pulled back. He was acting hypocritically. And so St. Paul called him out on it. And there was nobody who revered the papacy any more than St. Paul. But he had to do it because St. Peter was acting wrongly. I guess he was preaching incorrectly by his actions, which is what everybody loves to talk about now. But so what happened is, Bishop Strickland, I think what was the disagreement between Bishop Strickland and Pope Francis? And I looked into it, and from what I can tell, it basically boils down to this. Bishop Strickland said, they have all these, everybody's looking for new ways to do things. We have to find new ways of doing things. It kind of smacks of modernism, which has been officially condemned by the church. But synodality and all these various things. Somehow we need new things, new ministries for women, things like that. And maybe can we relook at these things that have been, like women in the priesthood? Can we relook at everything? And I think what Bishop Strickland was basically saying is, look, the truth doesn't change. And we already know the path to Jesus. He gave it to us. It's called the way of the cross. He said, unless you pick up your cross each day and follow me, you can't be my disciple. And the sanctifying elements of the church have never changed. They're exactly the same as they were on day one at Pentecost, or even before that. Jesus established some sacraments before that. Nothing has changed. The path to God is the same. And it's been trod by the saints and delineated and laid out clearly over centuries and really now millennia. We were talking about St. Francis. Yeah, St. Francis. St. Francis is, in this year that's dedicated to St. Francis, he deserves a little vindication. St. Francis was not a worshiper of nature. St. Francis invited nature to along with him, worship God as best that they could. And that's right. St. Francis, what St. Francis was into was what? The cross. Why do you think he had the stigmata? What do you think his focus was? The cross. And St. Francis also was highly motivated to promote reverence in the churches for Jesus' real presence in the Eucharist. That was his top priority, which you don't see, you never hear of that. How would you know that? I'm telling you, but I mean, I have read St. Francis's actual works. So that's how I know. But there's a lot of misrepresentations about St. Francis. Yeah, so the methods, the path to Jesus, the path to God, and the way to do it is not to change. There's nothing new needed. There's nothing better, and there's no improvement on it. You cannot improve on Jesus. No, you can't. You will not improve on Jesus. And you won't find a way for a woman to be holier than Mary. It's not going to happen. No, it would be better to see, how did these people do it? So that's what Bishop Strickland's criticism was. You don't need to be diverting all this focus away from what we already know is the way. There is no new way. Okay? And he's right. But what happened is, so he got removed from his diocese. So what does that mean? Is he still a bishop? Yeah, he's still a bishop. Pope Francis couldn't take that away from him, not without excommunicating him. He would have had to be excommunicated for heresy, which is pretty obvious he couldn't do. There's not even close to any grounds of heresy. And to me, I love to quote my own dad, who many years ago had this favorite saying, which was, "There's no intolerance like that of the tolerant." And what he meant by that is, there's all the people. It seems to be that the people who are the most tolerant of every aberration and thing, and can excuse any kind of abnormality and stuff like that. But there's one thing that they will not tolerate, and that is someone who disagrees with them. There they draw the line, So that's what happened to Pope Francis, so tolerant of so many things, so with so many modern things, and so sympathetic to so many things, but disagree with him, and you're out. And if you look back at the church, this happened before. Obviously, the famous case of Galileo, but many saints. St. John of the Cross was imprisoned for a year. Many saints had their orders disbanded and suppressed, and some of them not even during their lifetimes. They had, the seed had to die to come forth and bear fruit for some of them, which some very great orders were suppressed by the church. Back in the day, St. Joan of Arc, she wasn't tried and convicted by a civil court. It was a church court. So no, the fact that Bishop Strickland, that they've tried to suppress him, that's not either surprising, concerning, or alarming. It's probably to his credit. It's probably going to be a cause for his canonization someday. Well, I'm going to put a link to Bishop Strickland writes some pastoral letters still, and you can find them online. I'm going to put the link on there to it, because if you want to know the truth, and he's not like putting anyone down, but if you want to know the truth, go read what he talks about. Like, he has a great encyclical on marriage, and he spoke about the sort of like the loose lips sink ships. Even our dear Pope Leo has got that tendency to want, can't we all get along? But what did Jesus say in the gospel today? He said, if they don't listen to you, shake the dust of your sandals off and testimony against them. He didn't say you have to get along with everybody, or you can't hurt someone's feelings. The truth is more important. Pope Leo recently made some kind of a comment that sounded like he was insinuating that Muslim call to prayer is the same as ours, but it's not. If you read about this idea that Muslims are really pretty much like us, they believe in the God of Abraham, the same God as we do, but actually, no. There may be some Muslims that do believe in the same God of Abraham as we do. But if you dig into it a little bit, no, not really. That's not the God they're talking about. Their God is not a triune God. It's not the same God. So we shouldn't try to be, papering that over in the interest of getting along somehow. Because what's wisdom? Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. I think Bishop Strickland is pointing out, well, what is wisdom? Is wisdom doing things in such a way as to maintain a lack of conflict in human and temporal terms? Or is wisdom what you do in order to further the kingdom of God? And I think that's the real question. That's the question. Are you furthering, what is furthering the kingdom of God better? Is it this so-called new way of confusion and blurring the truth? Or is the old way of preaching it as it is? Like that's what St. Paul preached. He said, I preach Jesus Christ and him crucified. Or is that better? Okay.